Hello, I thought I'd show you today how I made this card with mixed bunch of embossing powders for the background. I wanted to get a different kind of texture. I'm a bit croaky today, so I hope you can hear me. So what I used was Ranger Distress embossing powder in frayed burlap, heated up enchanted gold, and heated up gold tinsel. And I used a mixture of those three powders on the background. The distress powder remains rough looking. It doesn't go shiny. It hardly looks as if it's melted. So you get a difference in not only colour, but in texture as well. So I'll just show you what I did. To begin, I just rubbed over my piece of card with an embossing buddy. And for this, I'm using hammered card, but I'm using the flat side because you get a contrast then between the card panel that is the image of and the actual card stock itself, although there's not much on the front. Anyway, here we go. So here's my stamp. It's a flourish stamp from Inkylicious, and I really like this one. It's really good for using going off the page and all that kind of stuff. So here we go. And I'll stamp that with a little bit going down one side. Now I'm using Versamark, which is a very slow drying ink, so I've got a bit of time in which to get my embossing powders on. So I'm going to start with the distress ink. This way is a little bit wasteful because once they're mixed, unless you want to use it for the same thing again, you can't use them individually. So I'm just going to tap a little over the Versamark. I'm not going to knock it off. I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to add some of the other two powders. So this is the Enchanted Gold. Put a bit of that in. And finally, I am croaky, I am sorry, the gold tinsel. Now this is going to go over all of the rest. Fill in all the gaps. There we go. Now I'm going to swish it around a little bit to make sure that all of the Versamark has got some coverage on it of some of the powder, don't mind which one. And of course the one that gets to the Versamark first is the one that'll be the one that shows up on the card. There's a bit there, looks like it hasn't got much on. In the top. I think that's okay. Right, now I'm going to heat emboss it. It's always better to get your heat tool warm a little bit before you actually put it onto the project. And the danger with distress powder is that because it doesn't go shiny, you may overcook it and you can singe the paper. There we go, and you may notice here there's a bit of where the distress powder went, and it's not shiny, it's dull, it's dark, and the difference between the different powders is really quite a stunning effect. Now onto the top of this I'm going to put these little butterflies. It's quite a delicate image, so I think that these delicate butterflies match quite well, and I'm going to cut them from vellum. Here's a piece of vellum. Now you may well see that this butterfly here didn't cut very well on the first pass through. So I know that if I'm going to use that particular dye again, I'm going to have to use a shim. I've got a very thin metal one here. I think it came from Tattered Lace actually. So we're going to pop the butterflies onto the vellum. I'm going to put the shim on top. And then I'm going to cut them out. Hopefully the shim will be sufficient to get right through. I'll come back the other way, I think. Here we are. And that has done the job. There we are. Just pop out the little filigree bits. There we are. Now, I wanted these coloured, so what I'm going to do is to just rub them across an ink pad. And I've got Stampin' Up! Pink Pirouette and Strawberry Slush here. This is where I get very messy. I think I may get messy. Yes, I think I will. Okie dokie. Should have rubber gloves on, really. There's that one. And the pale one. It's quite a pretty shade. This one's really delicate. There we go. Now, they'll take quite a while to dry on vellum. So what I'm going to do is just put a little my heat tool onto them just to dry them off so that they don't take too long. Now, to add a little more interest to these, I'm going to put a little bit of gold on the edges. So I have got some gold ink and just going to dab a little bit onto the edges. Don't know if you can see this, but onto the edges of the butterflies. There we go. Just adds a bit of sheen just to the edges of it. Now what I want to do is prepare my sheet for adding the butterflies. And I'm just going to stamp a Gorgeous Grunge splat stamp over this area here. So here's my Gorgeous Grunge splat stamp. I'm going to use the Pink Pirouette ink. Again, this just adds a little bit of interest to the remaining bit of card. Just a tiny bit more, I think. That'll do. Good. Now, to attach, well, I'm going to cut this first, actually, with my Simon Says stitched rectangle. Let's get rid of these tiny bits on here. There we go. If you have anything left on your plates, you'll make an indentation in whatever you're cutting, so it's always well to get rid of the tiny bits. So now I'm going to cut this so that it fits on the front, and this is how I do it. I think I've got the wrong one. This is the one I need. Now you can see that the size I need is a bit bigger than the die. So as I've done in a previous video, I cut it twice, once from each end, so that I can make the die cut longer. So here we go. There we are. Almost to the end of the die, and come out. Turn the paper around, or the card around. Make sure that the little stitch notches match with the previous cut. Just, if I move it around a little bit from side to side, I can feel the roughness of the base plate, and then I know that the notches are engaged with the previous cuts. Now very carefully pop this on the top, and oh, but easy. You need to go through a bit too far. That's better. There we are, and back again. So now we have a larger die cut which fits perfectly, if you see it, onto the British card shape. There we go. Put it out of the way again. Now to attach the butterflies, I like to use glue dots for this, but sometimes they're just a little bit too fat and they show. So what I do is just pull it off with my finger, and as I do that it rolls so it's thinner, and I can then put it onto the back of the butterfly and it won't show through. So here I can put it somewhere there. This one, same thing. This one is actually a little bit wider. I could probably get away with it, but I will roll it just the same. There we go. Now this one is a memory box butterfly, and it's a tiny one, and it doesn't actually come with any feelers or body or anything, but I've got one, a small one, that's from another one, and I decided to use this instead. Now here I've got an attempt when I was trying something out and I didn't like it. I was trying different little swirls with the 3 different embossing powders. Didn't like it, but I didn't throw it away because I can use this, and I'm going to use it for the middle of this other butterfly. So a bit of double-sided tape on the back, and pop it through the machine. There we go. So now I've got a body, and it's got a little bit of interest. If I could find a pokey tool, here's one. Don't know what it is with the other one. So there. There it is. You see it's got little bits of gold and different colours on it, so it's just not as plain gold or as boring as just plain white, so that can go in there. This one I'm going to put some pearls into, tiny ones, as a little embellishment in the main body part of it. So here I have some tiny pearls, and we'll just pop them. These are self-adhesive flat-backed pearls. There we go. There is another butterfly to go on, but we'll do him later. Now, because this is quite a florid sort of design, I wanted to match the style of the sentiment with the look of the flourish. So here I've got a With Love sentiment from Penny Black, and I'm just going to pop this in this little corner here. So ink it up with Versamark. And stamp there. Now I do have in my tray a bit of this mixture of embossing powders, and I'm just going to use that because what's left of it really will have to be thrown away because it's not pure anymore, it's all a mixture of stuff. But this will be fine for the sentiment. So there we go. There's our sentiment, and I'll emboss that. You see the difference there? Because it was mixed together, the predominant one is the gold, so the whole thing is gold. It's not as the gold would have been without the distress powder in, but if you want to get that effect of the distress powder, they need to be put on separately. And I always put the distress powder on first if I want to make sure that there is some of that matte finish. So all that needs to be done now is for this to be, well, another butterfly to be put on and popped onto the front of a card with some dimensional pads. So I hope you've enjoyed having a look. I hope I wasn't too croaky for you. This is what the finished one looks like. Thanks for watching.